Well, hello there. This is Kunal Mukherjee, and through this video, I'm going to show you how to build a rope stretcher on your own. Now, I would. Now, actually, the thing is that you can make a rope stretcher out of any kind of rope. Actually, it should be quite enough to hold the victim. But I would prefer, if you have a semi-static rope, you should use that instead of a dynamic rope, because if you use the dynamic rope, due to its elongation, you would feel that it is elongating while carrying the victim. So I would not prefer to recommend that for building a rope stretcher. So now what you're going to do is that after uncoiling the rope, find the most middle position of the rope, okay, and place it over the ground. How will you do that? You can find the middle position of the rope while from the free ends, okay, free ends touching together, and you just need to continue from there, and you can find the middle position. That's how, like, I have shown you. So now what you're going to do is that you can start from any random direction of the leading, I mean any random direction leading towards the free end. Okay. Okay, so now start giving turns from the portion randomly chosen, and have a variation in the size and width. Okay, it is only due to the victim's corresponding height and area. Okay, and the size in terms of the width of the turns is determined upon the area of individual portions of the body of the victim. So what I wanted to mean is that as long as you give the turns and determine the width of the turns, so about the head region and the leg region, which would be about very hard right and left or vice versa. So about those regions, try to maintain a lesser width turn, okay, less turns of lesser width. So it's due to that you do not wish to waste any extra amount of rope, which would come as handy later on. So that is the reason why I wanted to mention that always have a variation in the width. Okay, so that's how it is done. As you can see, I have uh, incremented in the width while uh, continuing the turns about the intermediate regions, as you can see, and then while coming up to the most other end part, I started giving lesser width turns. So afterwards, find the free end of that selected part of the rope and place it aside. It is only due to that it will only create hindrance in the process undergoing making the rope stretcher, because if you put all the gathered rope in one place, it will get tangled independently, as you would not want to have that. So for that reason, you just put that part aside and have that leading free end to make hitches. Now the time to give hitches on that leading free end which is left aside. Okay, so how will you gonna do? As you know how to give clove hitch, now give the clove hitch on that free end, like I am giving it right now. As you can see, you give a clove hitch on the free end and form an internal loop of the clove hitch. Through that internal loop, pass the head or the tip of the turn. Okay, the turn will definitely form a loop of its own, as it is once passed through the internal loop. So that newly formed loop will be observed once it is passed through that internal loop, as you can see. Okay, so once those are formed, the use of the internal loop is very you know is very necessary, I would say, as due to that if they are not formed, if they are not like made, if any new loops are not formed. Those new loops can be formed by several other ways. Okay, you can also put a knot except instead of hitches, but the hitches are very much convenient and also very much quick. So the use of this loop is that after you will see later on the video, in the video actually, uh, the free ends are passed through those newly formed loop, like you can see, like I'm going to give. Okay, so once the same phenomena has to be continued on the other end as well. You have to form a new loop on the other side as well, while passing the head or the tip of the turn through the internal loop of the clovage and form a new loop. Okay, so as you can see, not the sweating part or the kittens disturbing me. So as you can see that I'm for giving a clovage, and I'm passing the tip head of the or tip or the head of the turn through the clovage and forming a new loop, as you can see very clearly. And afterwards you will see that those free ends are passed through each individual newly formed loops, so that those newly formed loops doesn't get loosened or freed independently. Okay, that is the reason why you need to pass those free end through each newly formed loops. Well, it is quite evident that anything that is done with hitches is not permanent, and it's quite easy to get untangled. I would say freed or loosened. One can perform giving knots instead hitches, but that is not convenient. Now as you can see that I started passing the free end through those newly formed loops of each individual turns. Actually on each individual turns it would be much precise, and that's it, and then start continuing. So it maintains the structural integrity. So now what you're going to do is that you need to pass the free end of each individual portion on which I had made the clovage and passed that turn head. Now it would be looking like, I mean, it is basically presumably looking like an unlike parallel parts at each individual sides. Now there I have already given those clovages and passed the head of the turns through it and formed a new loops, as that is what I'm trying to mention through the video right now. And you have to do the same thing on either sides. Now once that is done, and it is about time where you get to see where how not that, actually not that part. Okay, I would say when I'm doing it. All right, so actually it's due to its aging. Okay, it's way too old. The rope is way too old, and that is the reason why. Okay, now what I was trying to mention is that pass the rope free end through the newly formed loop, and you have to do on the either side the same way, while turning the rope sides on the opposite side and pass it from the opposite head ends of the loop. You can there is no hard and fast rule to use clovage. You can use a knot, but if you do that, uh, just think about it. A knot is something which is preliminary fixed, and it cannot be varied unless the tanglement are loosened. But hitches only requires a support, and the variation of the friction determined upon the tightness of the loops and the turns. Okay, so the reason why I prefer to give a hitch is only due to that you can maintain the tightness as requirement. But if you use knots instead of hitches, as it will be fixed, and you cannot vary the tightness or maintain. Now the rope stitcher is made. You need to find the you need to place the victim, as I am trying to place the kitty as a victim of mine, and he tries to run away. Now what I'm going to do, I have found Mr. Stick, who wishes to be the victim, and I placed Mr. Stick over the rope stitcher. Now it is highly uh, recommendable not to put any victim directly on the rope stitchers, as the tightness and wrapping on the further continuation will create burns and what shall I say, marks, and also on the basis of comfort integrity it will be harmed regardless of the tightness. So in order not to let that happen, try to place a mattress over the rope stitcher. Afterwards, if it is possible, then place the person while he is inside a sleeping bag. Okay. Now afterwards, once he is placed, then wrap the person with that remaining rope, so that the rope stitcher is is quite usable. Now you it is quite you know like this, as you can see, it is only due to there is no victim, and if there is no victim, the tightness is not maintained and the structural integrity is hampered, but the rope stitcher is maintained and made like this. Okay, so thank you there.